From Yarm to Yibby, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swalwell to Silverlink. Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the Red, the Toon and the Cat.
Yeah, boys, it's going to go to penalties, is it, Steve? Yeah. Penalties indeed. Hey, who put his red pound on 2-0 last night? Get it!
Unbelievable, Jeff. Well done to Boro. I was hedging my bets by saying penalties, but bear in mind, lads, that I felt you'd get through, but it would be a lot closer than that. But 2-0, a clean sheet. What a result, Rye.
Oh, you can't beat it, mate. You cannot beat it. And you know what is incredible as well? Seeing three Aussies line up for the mighty Boro again. We had Tom Glover in goal, Riley McGree, Sammy Silvera all starting in a very much changed team, which I was wondering yesterday as we were talking on the radio whether what type of changes we'd see. And we saw 7 in total, which was incredible. But what a performance by the lads. I mean, Tom Glover didn't have to make a significant save at all game. So not sure what would happen down at Bradford, but look, they were just, I don't know. I think we just outplayed them, to be honest with you. We just looked incredible. The form, the possession, honestly, Hayden Hackney and Johnny Howson in the centre of that midfield are back to their all-time best. It is incredible to see what Hackney can do when he's got Johnny Howson next to him. I fear the day when that happens as well. So Dan Barlaser as well, I thought he played absolutely fantastic. He's been in and out of that team. Hayden Hackney in the centre of the pitch. I mean, there was just, there's 8 to 9 stars all over that ground. Emmanuel Arte Lath as well coming on, scoring the first goal. So we'll get into the headlines and I'll let you know all about it. But it was just incredible. And 4,000 travelling supporters, mind you. Over 4,000 travelling supporters down to Bradford for a midweek game. What an absolute turnout.
Yeah. There you go. And in all my excitement this morning to get on here and start waxing lyrical, bearing in mind I've got immediately at the end of the programme, I've got to jump on a train to go to Manchester for a business meeting. I've spilled coffee all down my white shirt. Come on!
No. I did that this morning as well, actually. What a day. I spilled half of one all down me today. It was one of those days. Couldn't believe it.
Tell you what, Steve, though, if Boro winning means I spill coffee on a shirt, I'll do it every day of the week. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I tell you what, great to see Dan Barlaser finally establishing himself in a first team, because he was somebody who stood out for me in Newcastle. Didn't quite get there, but he seems to be a key player for the Boro now.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems to be in and out of the team, which is interesting for me. And he's never really sort of grasped the fans fully. I think there's been a lot of question marks around Dan, and he seems to come in every now and then with a really good performance. And I think Dan last night showed what he's capable of. His passing last night was incredible. His defensive side of the game as well. I mean, Hayden Hackney for me next to him was man on the match. So it was easy to. I think it was easy to look good when you were next to Hayden Hackney, because I reckon he was man on the match by far. He is just incredible what that kid can do. He's going to be an absolute star. And then,
do you think because Barlaser was born in Gateshead? I mean, I'm not sure who he supports. Do you think that's maybe an issue where he struggled a little bit to settle in at first? I know it's not a million miles away, but
because the atmosphere is full of smog. Is that what you're trying to say?
I think that could be part of it. But joking aside, is it? I don't know whether he supports Newcastle, Dan. He obviously comes from the Newcastle academy. Is it sometimes more difficult for players to settle? When they're moving that short distance. I mean, some players do it with ease, but other players seem to really, really struggle with it. Lee Clark, prime example, went to Sunderland, and apart from the T-shirt incident at Wembley, he is revered in Sunderland. I still speak to Sunderland fans today who say he was probably one of the best players they've seen in a red and white shirt for the last, over the last 30 years. He's up there with Kevin Phillips and Niall Quinn for a lot of Sunderland fans because of what he did. Unfortunately, the T-shirt incidents, caused an issue with that. But then you've got somebody like Michael Chopra, who, again, North East lad, went to Sunderland, but in a big game against Sunderland, Sunderland against Newcastle, when he had the red and white on, he fluffed his shot in front of goal. And a lot of people say he did that deliberately. So you speak to Sunderland fans about Shopper, and he tarnished his reputation. So I'm just wondering if that's the case with Barlaser. You never know, you know. Maybe the Boro fans are a little bit wary. He's come from Newcastle. Is he 100% committed? Maybe he's a bit nervous, but, you know, nice to see him in the team last night, because I genuinely thought he was a good player at Newcastle.
I think the problem with Barlaser, there's no problem with Barlaser, but the issue why he's not a regular first teamer right now. I think he was brought in to replace Johnny Howson, because Johnny Howson's getting on, and if you have a look at his deals with the Boro of the last 5 years, you know, he's had 1 year extensions just in the last couple of years, because I'm expecting the Boro thinking at some point his legs are going to go, and they haven't. They haven't. So Barlaser was brought in to replace Johnny Howson, but he's now facing a Howson who just talked to Carrick about Howson. He says he's a born leader. He stays on the training ground. He looks after himself fitness-wise, health-wise, food-wise, nutrition, absolutely everything, extending his career. And I think that's the problem with Barlaser. The Boro are expecting him to fit in very quickly to replace Howson, but Howson's just upped his game. Even at the tender age of 30-something, he's upped his game, and Barlaser just can't get in at the moment. I think that's the issue with him.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm the same age as Johnny Howson, and I literally couldn't up my game anywhere near like what Johnny can do. I tell you, it's incredible what that man does and continues to do, and as a leader. And you know, we heard last week, you know, when we come off the Sheffield Wednesday draw, you know, confidence is a little bit down probably still. We were expected to obviously smash, you know, Sheffield Wednesday. It didn't really happen. And it's rumoured, and no one's confirmed this at all, so it is a rumour, but it's rumoured that the boys all the players got together, and they tried to sort out what was actually happening. Why was there such a poor start to Middlesbrough season when they did have the players that they did? They had Grant Ledbetter in there, who's now coach, obviously, and Grant said that to the players that he was looking for leaders, and Johnny Howson was the first one to put his hand up and say, I haven't been good enough, and here I go. And then on the weekend, we see him put in absolute incredible performance and then scores the penalty after taking it off Josh Coburn and saying, no, it's my ball, I'm the captain, I'll take the penalty. So it was incredible to see what Johnny Howson can do in that club. But obviously rested last night, and Dan Barlaser comes in and just absolutely... We saw it at Rotherham when he was there. He was a passing machine. I don't think he's ever been credited as a defensive midfielder. I think he's more been credited as an assister. And you know, Middlesbrough don't really need him for assists as much, I would argue. I'd say that role that he plays in next to Hackney, that Howson role, if you will, is more of a defensive midfielder. And I think it's taken Dan a long time to kind of adjust to that. But last night we saw him being able to track back, and I thought he did really, really well in shutting it down. Again, looking next to Hackney, you could have, you know, you literally could have just put boots on and you probably would have looked good. And his ball up through to McGree and Rogers as well. It was incredible. So it was great to see. And with 7 changes, starting to see some of those boys that we did bring in the summer. And that's where I think we've gone wrong. I think we've started some of these boys so early on. I think these, you know, when you've got so many new signings into a club, it's hard not to have to place a few of them. But when we ease these boys, these signings in and give them the cup run, give them the confidence, that's where we can build on. And I was also very, very proud for Dale Fry, who captained us last night for the first time. So good on you, Dale. And he was absolutely in awe of the Middlesbrough fans. And he was just so proud to be wearing the captain's armband as well. So good on you, Dale. I love you, mate. The big lighthouse. So it was just an all-round great night again for Middlesbrough. And I hope that we can just build on it because... literally, I think we've clicked. I think it's clicked.
Where'd you get these from? So Dale Fry's now the lighthouse. You've got who else have you got? Matty Crooks is the tree. You've got Riley McGree. That's the goat.
The goat.
Yeah. Come on.
The goat.
Where'd you pull these from?
Tom Glover, he's the right hand from down under because he's got one of the best right hands from down under. I don't, you know what? It just comes to me like a spark. I tell you, it's just one of those things. It's incredible. Just, you know, some of these you know, these boys that can and what can come. I mean, you know, Dan Barlaser is also the sloth. Have you heard that one? Matty Crooks calls him the Sid the Sloth from Ice Age. So that's his nickname, old Sid. So because he looks like Sid the Sloth from Ice Age. So. Look, the boys, I am just so happy for each and every one of them. Again, the travelling fans, over 4,000 travelling down to Bradford for a midweek game. I mean, we got to talk about it as well because it's not, you know, so many complaints on social media about it not being televised, not being able to get a feed. or stream anywhere. We had Middlesbrough supporters in Canada trying to, in my DMs, asking me where they could get footage from, and it's incredible in 2023 that no matter where, whatever competition the club's in, you just can't watch it. It's just, it blows belief, but
it is crazy.
It is what it is.
When you think this day and age, you've already touched on, we're in 2023. And we should be able to do this sort of stuff, but they'll argue it's all to do with media rights, but that's not right. You can look. I worked in media rights for the last 5 years in football. You can do carve-outs as a media rights owner. You can give yourself exceptions. You can renegotiate. You can do all that sort of stuff. I just get the feeling the EFL is a dinosaur when it comes to commercials. They paid the price for the last deal with Sky in the red button, and the hierarchy had to leave because of the deal. The clubs looked at it and thought, "This ain't right." You've just given all the crown jewels away for a pretty ordinary price. So it's a new hierarchy now, and even then they've done another deal, which is a great deal for the EFL with Sky, but still there are games going without streams. There are games going without coverage, and you've got the infrastructure there. They've just got to get their strategy finger out and get it done right and bring themselves to the modern day age, because there's absolutely no excuse, none whatsoever, to deprive fans and deprive clubs of revenue generation.
I agree.
Thousands of Boro fans would have paid to watch that game last night.
Yep. Completely agree.
I think it'll come eventually. I think eventually you'll see, TV channels, becoming more and more prevalent within football for football clubs. I mean, eventually the deal will change. There will be an opportunity for people to do that. I mean, I'm surprised how slow it's been, Dave. And you work in the industry, and when you go onto your Virgin Media box, your Sky box, whatever you've got in the house, and you see Manchester United TV, Liverpool TV, etc. I'm always surprised that there hasn't been more of those, especially in the regions. NUFC TV is getting better, but it's still not what it should be. And I just think that fair enough, the deals that you have, depending on what division you're in, the Premier League deal, the Championship deal, whatever you've got, I'm just surprised there isn't more flexibility. Given Middlesbrough fans, Newcastle fans, Sunderland fans around the world the opportunity to watch their team is what it's all about. And Newcastle at the moment are going through a bit of a renaissance on Sky after being in the doldrums under Ashley. We now seem to be back on TV as much as we were under the late Vic Wakeland at Sky. We seem to be the go-to team, and it's great for fans around the world to be able to watch it. But I get where you're coming from with the likes of Middlesbrough. Rye sitting in Australia not able to watch a game. There's something wrong with this. It does need to be done.
There is.
Certainly for overseas fans as well.
Yeah, and it's funny.
Exactly.
It's funny. The business meeting I mentioned earlier, I'm going to today in Manchester, is with a company that does exactly that. They specialise in streaming sport games live. And we put FIFA Plus together. We're now streaming. We've got the capability. I keep saying I've now left FIFA, but that project has got the capability of streaming 40,000 live games a year.
Wow.
Of that sort of size and scale, and it's very easy to do. And all it takes is somebody with a bit of nous from a technical perspective, and there are companies out there like this one I'm going to see today. There are companies out there that do it and specialise in it, so you don't have to rely on building it yourself. But you've just got to be a bit creative with your commercials, with your media rights, with your assets. That's all you've got to do, and people will talk. So you can go to Sky and say, "Look, guys, I know you've got the deal, the deal we've signed, but we're depriving football fans here. What can we do? Even if we have to give you a share of the revenue, the additional revenue, what can we do here? Because nobody's going to see this. You're not going to benefit from it because it's not being shown anywhere. So come on, let's talk sensibly." That's all it takes, a grown-up commercial conversation. And then fans like the Boro fans last night, and I don't just want to keep this as a Boro argument. This is an argument for football. Fans will then not be deprived of seeing their icons when there aren't, conventional ways of seeing it, like on TV.
I know there's a ruling, obviously, in England where they obviously don't like to show it because they feel like it will stop people going to the games, and I can understand that. And look, that is what it is. I don't think that we're ever going to have an argument to win on that stage. But for international fans especially, and that's the ones I'm talking to, we've got fans all around the world that just wanted to watch their team this morning play in a cup game, and it's third round. It's not like it's the first round when there's 1,000 other games. It's third round. There's not many to choose from, and you simply couldn't do it. You couldn't pay anyone. I'm talking legally as well, not even trying to be dodgy, but you couldn't just flick £10 anywhere like you normally could to just even get a stream. It just was not available whatsoever. And there would be TV cameras. There was, there's obviously commentators all at the pitch, but it's not what for. Is it for highlight reel? Well, it's literally Sky Sports are getting highlights from them, and that was it. It was literally, it just feels like a waste. And I was so upset that in 2023, in an EFL Cup third round, I could not watch my team play. It was devastating, but it is what it is. But look, I tell you, there's a big market there, because if someone can grab them by the horns and start putting on some of these games, week in, week out, that normally aren't shown, especially internationally, I think you've got a gold mine there.
It would not happen in the US with their major sports. Not happen at all. No. If you're a fan, you will have a multiple number of ways you can watch that game. Yes, it's going to cost you, either a monthly subscription or a one-off pay-per-view or a season pass or whatever you've got to do. There are multiple ways that US sports fans will see their NBA, their hockey, their football, whatever it happens to be. They would see it, even MLS through an Apple deal. They would get to see it. So why, in English football, are we so far behind? Why are we so far? And even the Premier League, Steve. The Premier League, every game gets broadcast live around the world, but we still have this blackout window, 3 till 5 on a Saturday afternoon, where we're not allowed to televise sport. I've lived and worked abroad. I spent 8 years in Singapore, spent 4 years in the US working in television. When I went out to Singapore, which was my first move out of the UK, I couldn't believe what I could see. I could watch every single Premier League game. Some of them obviously kicked off at the same time. I'd need a couple of screens. But I have my choice. I could see every single Premier League game. I could see every golf major, tennis. I could see F1. I could see every Champions League game, Bundesliga, La Liga. Sitting there in Singapore, I was like a kid at Christmas every single day. What do I want to watch today? What do I want to watch in the next hour? But we're deprived.
That's how it should be.
We're deprived that with English football, particularly the Champions League, and watching English football in the UK. It's just not right. It's just not right.
It'll get sorted eventually. Things like this do, but it doesn't do people like Rye any good for the here and now, missing out on a 2-0 win against Bradford.
Me, I wanted to watch the game last night. Because I've been working. I've only just got back into the country. I couldn't get a ticket for the game last night. I wanted to watch the game, couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Even for those that are locally based, it's incredible that it happens, but. Look, the way I did it was I waited for the highlights. The highlights got posted pretty much straight after the final whistle. So I avoided Twitter. I avoided all social media. I blacked myself out. And as soon as the final whistle went, I put on the highlights, the longer extended highlights, and I sat there and I watched it in its entirety. And what a performance. It was incredible. Obviously delayed and bits were cut out, but it was still a weird way to watch it, but knowing it had already happened. But that's the only way I could do it, and it was just awesome to see. And that new away strip, that was the first time we played in that away strip. That looked neat. I've got one on the way, all the way to Australia. It'll take about 6 months to get here. Thank you, Customs, and especially in Australia here. I know you'll be able to search and sniff it before I even get to touch it, but I can't wait for that away strip to get here after seeing it taken out last night against Bradford. It looked very, very clean.
Are we done on Boro for now then? Should we talk Newcastle?
That goes radio silence.
I don't want to take up... I can take up 2 hours. Don't you worry. I can take up 2 hours. You want me to keep going? I'll keep going. Yeah. Right, so where do we start?
Well, let's go over the headlines.
Headlines? All right, we'll go. I'll go to headlines. We'll go to headlines. I'll start with Middlesbrough headlines because
I'll go to headlines. You've already had Middlesbrough.
Oh, okay.
Newcastle's headlines. Sheffield United are bracing themselves for an FA investigation following an incident in the club's 8-0 thrashing by Newcastle United on Sunday afternoon. Sven Botman's first half goal at Bramall Lane, which put the visitors 3 goals ahead, was greeted by objects being thrown onto the pitch, as was evident from the television footage and picked up by the commentary team. Harvey Barnes is set to miss months of the season rather than weeks with a foot injury, Eddie Howe announced yesterday. He suffered what the manager described as an unusual injury in the 8-0 win at Sheffield United at the weekend. And there's some good news on the injury front for United fans, with Newcastle World reporting that Joe Linton was back in training ahead of tonight's match in the Carabao Cup against Manchester City. And of course that game kicks off tonight, 8 o'clock, live on Sky Sports. Not rubbing it in, Rye. And injury news, well, obviously Harvey Barnes is out, as we know. Joe Willock and Joe Linton, both we reckon remain out, but the sight of Joe Linton on the training ground gives Newcastle fans a little bit of hope that he might come back maybe for the weekend. And Emil Kraft is back training too, but he is not yet available. So that is all the Newcastle headlines this morning.
I think we better throw Sunderland in there for some balance here, because Rye's chomping at the Boro bit. So let me do some.
A big one.
Oh, hey, well I'm not going to go there. We're on the radio. Let's do some Sunderland news. Sunderland Under 21's assistant manager John Hewittson's gushing, yes, near gushing over Black Cat's new boy Nazali Russian, saying he's got brilliant pace. The 24-year-old centre forward joined from Zoya Lugansk in the summer transfer deadline window, and on Monday was part of Graham Murty's under-21 side, who took on Derby County, where the Ukrainian provided an assist and won a penalty to help the Sunderland side to a 3-1 victory. Now then, do you fancy working with the lads? Two exciting opportunities have arisen to coach within Sunderland's academy. The Black Cats are looking to recruit an under-11 and under-12 coaching cell lead, whatever one of them is, as well as an under-13 and under-14 cell lead. Application details are on safc.com. And there's good news also on the injury front. The Sunderland Echo's reporting Tony Mowbray could welcome back midfielder Pierre Equa into the squad against Sheffield Wednesday this weekend. Sunderland signed the French talent from West Ham back in January, and after a decent first half of the season with the Black Cats, the 21-year-old has gone on to really make an impression in the early stages of the new campaign. Over to Ryan Borough.
It's interesting to keep seeing how Sunderland keep playing the teams that we've just played, isn't it? Well done, well done for the North East fixture. Yeah. Middlesbrough news. Good morning, Middlesbrough fans. I love yous. What a win we had last night. And Michael Carrick feels Middlesbrough starting to finally find their form as they progress into the fourth round of the Carabao Cup with a 2-0 win at Brentford. Boro, who have only won for the first time in the championship this season at the weekend, made 7 changes from that victory over Southampton, but started brightly and went in front through Emmanuel Latte Lath. Carrick had to say that the players' approach to the game, their attitude to the game was right from the very start. I was very pleased, thought everyone looked really comfortable, did their jobs and looked dangerous. Carrick also did make 7 changes to the Cup game as he handed opportunities to numerous players not currently in his starting lineup, and he got exactly what he hoped for when doing so, as Morgan Rogers, another summer signing who's yet to really make his mark in a Boro shirt, got the second goal. Morgan Rogers' close-range finish in the second half sealed the visitors' spot in the next round, and Carrick reckons his side are beginning to click. It was a good game for us. The atmosphere was good, and the game certainly means a lot to the supporters. It's starting to come. I can see that clicking a bit, said Michael. Oh, don't you like it when Michael says it's starting to click? Oh, Carrick has also been given a big vote of confidence to Emmanuel Latte Lath. Carrick is backing his new number 9 to score many goals for Middlesbrough after an important goal for the striker at Bradford City. Reacting after his goal helped Boro on their way, Carrick said pace and movement are a big part of his game. Manu is a real handful, and he'll be the first to say that he's expected to score more goals. That's fine, but his movement has been really good, and he'll keep getting chances, I'm sure of it. Middlesbrough were also backed by over 4,000 travelling supporters for the Carabao Cup midweek match. Incredible effort. Dale Fry, who captained the Boro for the Cup tie, was in absolute awe of the travelling fans and couldn't believe the numbers. In a funny media moment, Dale said he was flabbergasted when he was told the numbers earlier in the day. Boro will now travel to Vicarage Road to take on a tough Watford team, but will be absolutely full of confidence now given the last 2 performances. Oh, Boro, you're making me happy. The smile is wide and brimming this morning, tell ya.
Tell you what, mate, if Carrick's gabber is flastered, then he's doing something right, isn't he? A great message, by the way. Great message that winged in its way after we closed down the North East Footy Breakfast Show yesterday morning, which I've got to mention. It comes from Andrew. He says, best I don't understand the word cross, but best cross footy club show in years. Love it. Keep up the great work, lads. So that's from
thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to get your comments in, you can get your criticisms in. You can get your jokes in. You can do whatever you want. If you want to sing a song, we don't mind. The number WhatsApp. It's WhatsApp. That's the important thing. A lot of people are calling this number and leaving voicemails, which we don't get for a week due to the system then processing it and emailing it and all that malarkey. So WhatsApp us 0330 043 2002. That's 0330 043 2002. So cracking.
Wow, there's some interesting results overnight, obviously, as well. In the third round, we obviously saw the mighty Boro take on Bradford and win 2-0, but we also saw a Premier League crash in Manchester United beating Crystal Palace 3-0. Burnley also knocking out Salford City 4-0. Can you believe it? Salford are gone. Unlucky Gary Neville. Luton Town, the new boys to the Prems, continuing to struggle.
The boys with the garden fence.
Going down to Exeter City 1-0. Unlucky Luton there. And Ipswich Town knocking out Wolverhampton Wanderers, as well as Ipswich continue just to blow all the minds as they continue their amazing run, knocking out Wolves 3-2. And Mansfield through as well, 3-1 on penalties. So some incredible results. We've obviously got more Carabao Cup action tonight. I think Man City are playing a small team. I'm not too sure. There's a Man City tie in there somewhere. But interesting to see.
Keep all the big games to last, mate.
Interesting to see Manchester United get a result. And of course, Eric Ten Hag was asked straight after the game, what about Sancho? And he said, I'm not here to talk about players that are not involved with my club. So that was an interesting comment, I thought, from Eric Ten Hag, which was, just commenting that he's not ready to talk about players not involved with his club. So
I'm sick of this Man U story now. I'm absolute sick of it. And
it keeps getting played, doesn't it?
Ban it from the show. Ban it from the show. I'm sick of speaking about Man U. They're absolutely garbage.
Man U.
Man U.
I like it.
They can't run a club properly. The bloke's he's an absolute idiot the way that he's going on with this. It's playing it all out in the public. It's embarrassing. It really is. And like I said, the best games to the last. Tonight's a packed Carabao Cup. Never mind Newcastle against Manchester City, which is great. But there's some really intriguing ties tonight. Villa versus Everton. After Everton get a win at the weekend, I think that's a really interesting tie. That Blackburn Cardiff, another good game for people to get their teeth into. Brentford Arsenal, a London derby. Chelsea Brighton. Now Chelsea, this really staggered me. I don't think Chelsea have had a result against Brighton since 2013. Is this another banana skin for Chelsea tonight?
Wow.
Potentially could be. If they go out the Carabao Cup tonight, Pochettino could be under pressure. And I tell you another one that stands out tonight: Liverpool-Leicester. Leicester looking for a quick return to the Premier League. Liverpool are, looking a lot better than they did last season, scoring goals for fun again. The new midfield acquisitions are starting to gel. But could Leicester pull off an upset at Anfield tonight? You never know. That's the beauty of the cup, and especially with this cup having to be finished, on penalties. It's got to be finished tonight, which I always prefer. I prefer that to replays and long drawn out. 30 minutes of extra time and then this and that. Let's just go straight to the penalties. I think it's great. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've got to talk about Harvey Barnes' injury though. That was a big blow. I've got to be honest. And when you saw him go down, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but obviously we didn't know how bad the injury was. Well, now Eddie Howe's come out, told us how bad the injury is. And I'm gutted for the lad. He was a big money signing. Obviously he's jumped ship at Leicester, who were relegated. Was he pushed? Did he want to go on his own accord? Who knows? But he came to Newcastle. He got off to a really good start in the pre-season. Scoring on his debut at St James's Park in the pre-season, and then of course notching in the win against Villa. He's been probably playing second fiddle though to the man who had a better summer than him, which is Anthony Gordon, and found himself on the bench. But he started at the weekend. We've been looking to make an impression. Squad rotations, what it's all about at Newcastle this season with the competitions that they're in, and he got injured, and it's such an innocuous injury. You just don't know. You don't really know how he did it, but it's a foot injury, and we were talking about this on NUFC Matters last night, and we have somebody who's a specialist in the field who gave us an indication of what it could be, and there's two potential injuries it could be, and it's not a metatarsal, it's not a broken toe, but it's something to do with like a bone in the foot, which it's quite a rare injury, and they're saying it comes from when you land. I think we've all done it when we've played football back in the past. You maybe had, you've landed on hard ground on your studs, and it's something to do with the under part of the foot, which is quite a unique and rare injury. So we'll get confirmation, I'm sure, from Eddie Howe over the next couple of days. He still didn't seem to be too certain whether he needed an operation, but he was erring on the side if he probably does, and he's going to be out for months, and that's a big blow, especially with Anthony Gordon currently sitting on 4 yellow cards as well, which means one more yellow card and he's banned for a game. But I guess, trying to be positive is, if there's one area where Newcastle United have a plethora of available players, it's midfield. And with the sight of Joe Linton back on the training ground over the last 24 hours, that's good news for Newcastle. We paid tribute to the fact that they could bring on £150 million worth of subs at the weekend, and that shows you they've got strength and depth now. Elliot Anderson can play left side, Isak can play left side, Joe Linton can play left side. We're coming quickly towards the next international break, and we know that Joe Willock is going to be back in October, who's a key player for Newcastle. So I guess this injury is going to affect Harvey Barnes more than it's going to affect our team, because of the strength and depth in midfield. So people saying, are you concerned about it? At the moment, I'm not, because I think we've got players who can come in and do the job and do it admirably. I wish Harvey Barnes a speedy recovery, though, because I think he's going to be a key player for us at some point during the season. But strange injury, Rai.
Yeah, it is a strange injury. It didn't look very... it looked more innocuous, didn't it, when he went down? I didn't really think it was anything and he was also assisted off the pitch, but he was able to do it under his own duress. So it was interesting to see and hear when we were talking in the group and chat, and obviously the Eddie Howe saying as well how long he was out. I was quite shocked, and look, it's going to be, obviously you don't want to lose any sort of players at this time of the season, especially for months on end when you have got fixtures coming thick and fast at you. But again, the answer is right there. Is when Gordon came on, I'd say he was man of the match for me against Sheffield United. So it's incredible to see Newcastle's depth there in that position. But yeah, not what you want to hear when he's obviously made a big money move. He's trying to stay in the Premier League, and obviously Champions League football coming and everything like that. So yeah, unlucky for Harvey, but it is part of football, unfortunately, injuries, and you just hope that they aren't that serious, and that if you do need surgery or whatever, that you can come back and bounce back quite quickly. The best thing is that he's young and he's got a lot of football ahead of him still. So I'm sure he'll be okay, and I'm sure that he'll be in the right hands and they'll get him back as quickly as possible. So good luck to you there, Harvey, because unfortunately, it is a bit of a blow, but I think Newcastle has still got the depth there.
Yeah, he will be back. He will be back, absolutely. And one player you've mentioned a couple of times, the pair of you, in that quick chat, was Anthony Gordon. And it's interesting that Eddie Howe in his press conference yesterday was waxing lyrical about him, the way he's coming on, the way he's developing as a player, and how good he can be. And we'll hear those words from Eddie Howe after we take a quick break, and we'll focus on the EFL Cup. Sorry. We'll focus on the Carrier Bag Champions League Cup after this short break, and obviously Newcastle are playing tonight, aren't they? G'day. Right.
G'day.
We've got Aussie again.
Shrimp on the barbie.
Yeah, I didn't realise that until we were just about to chat. Hey, fellas, I've just been for a leak. Obviously, like the rest of us, when we put a bit of music on, it means we all take a comfort break. I think that's the politically correct term. Okay, I've just been for a pee. And I went to refill my cup with Council Pop, a nice bit of water out the tap. And standing next to the sink when I was filling my mug is this hand sanitizer. But it's not called hand sanitizer. It's called alcohol hand rub.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, there you go.
That's a new name for it.
The marketeers are going mad. They're going crazy these days. If we
You
don't
didn't have a drink of it, did you?
I didn't drink it. No. Far too early in the morning for that. Yeah, but obviously the marketeers have gone, if we call it something different to hand sanitizers, we can probably charge 3 times as much. Love it. Alcohol hand rub. Anyway, where are we going? Oh, yeah, we were talking audio, weren't we? We were talking Harvey Barnes. We were talking Anthony Gordon. Do you ever listen to what Eddie Howe had to say? Because he's been waxing lyrical about Anthony Gordon. We'll come on to his thoughts on the game tonight very shortly. But in his press conference yesterday, this is what he had to say about the young attacker.
He's had an outstanding start to the season. What's pleased me most, I think, is his fitness levels, his athleticism is really coming to the fore. But he's adding goals and product, so he had an assist and a goal on Sunday, which is great to see, and all attacking players will be judged ultimately by that. But I think the pre-season did him really good, but as did the 6 months that he had with us before the break for the summer, because he had a taste of what to expect, but he's got such a high ability and so much potential that we really feel he can push on, and so much more to work on and improve, but the qualities are there for him to be an outstanding player at this level.
It's funny, Steve, I was reading an article as well that was written about him, and the journal described him as being looking a better player in the Newcastle black and white, just a mere reference to the strip, not how he's performing, but just says he feels and looks like a better player because he's wearing that Newcastle shirt. I mean, what's your thoughts on him? How excited are you?
I was delighted to see Anthony Gordon come to Newcastle United. I remember being at Goodison the season before he came. It was a very tight game. It was Steve Bruce was managing the team, and Anthony Gordon, if I remember rightly, came on as a substitute, and he caused us all kinds of mayhem, all kinds of trouble. He was quick. He was one of those players who, I tell you who he reminded me of. He reminded me of David Speedy. Somebody who would never give fellow midfielders 5 seconds on the ball. He'd be in at you, he'd be up your ankles, he'd just make your life an absolute nightmare. And as for defenders, the one thing a defender hates is somebody running at them, somebody who's quick, and that's what Anthony Gordon's got. He's got the pace, he's got the trickery. He's still quite young. He's still got the opportunity to develop under Eddie Howe. And I think what happened when he first came to the club was he wasn't up with a programme. He wasn't fit, and by his own admission, he's had to become Newcastle United fit, because it's the one thing that Eddie Howe does is train his players and have them at a very high level. This high intensity press comes from high intensity training, and by his own admission, he was wide of the mark when he first came to the club. But he had a wonderful summer. I think the fact that he didn't have that rest that other players did. He continued his fine form. That he finished at the end of the season. Of course, he notched at Chelsea for Newcastle, got his first goal. Then continued that form in the summer with England, and was quite rightly named Player of the Tournament. He's then come into the start of this season with a point to prove, and I think the signing of Harvey Barnes is giving him that little bit of extra pressure, because he will have been looking at that going, well, hold on a minute, I thought I was brought in for this position, because he clearly sees himself as a left winger, but he can. The good thing about him is that he can play in a variety of positions. He's not just a left winger. We know he could do a job in centre midfield. We know he could do a job as a number 10. We know he could do as a job, if pushed, as a right winger or a number 9. And being able to play all those different positions can be a massive benefit. And I know back in the day, going back to say the 90s and the entertainers, Steve Watson, I've done a few talk-ins with him over the years, and he's often said he found it a bit of a poison chalice, at the start of his career, that he was versatile, but as time went on, he actually quite enjoyed it. I mean, at one stage, Steve Watson was played as a makeshift centre forward and scored at Anfield. So, he enjoyed that as part of his career, whereas who knows what Gordon feels? Does he have a favourite position, or does he just like being in the team? Who knows? But he's a massive acquisition. He's a great. I think, again, a bit like Joe Linton. We were all scratching our heads under Bruce because he kept saying there's a player in there, and we were going, we can't see a player at all. We've wasted £40 million. Now Joe Linton's he's a cult hero. He's a terrace hero. Everybody loves Joe Linton, and when he's out the side, he's a notable miss. I think the same's going to happen with Anthony Gordon. He's become a fan's favourite. Unfortunately, 4 yellow cards means we could lose him for a game over the next few weeks. But you can't take that out of his game. It's vitally important to have somebody who's got a bit of, not nastiness, just a bit of steel about them in that midfield area. And he's become, I think the reason that he's had such a good start as well is Joe Linton hasn't performed as well. He's clearly been carrying an injury, and I think he's probably become a bit of a competitor for Joe Linton. So all in all, for me, great player. You can see why Everton were really, really disappointed to lose him, but I think he's going to be a key player in Newcastle United's quest for a trophy over the next few seasons.
He sounds like a poor man's Riley McGree, to be honest with you. I mean, that's what that's what he sounds like. He sounds like you guys like a poor man's Riley McGree. Honestly, that's all it is. So that's exactly how it sounds. So no, it's going to be. I think, as you said, when he came on against Sheffield United. After obviously the Barnes injury, he absolutely changed that game. He looked incredible up front there, and Sheffield United couldn't deal with him. Obviously they were playing a 3-man defence, and he was just all over them. That he could have just done nothing wrong on that day. So he's going to be a player to watch, and he's a exciting player for England's future as well. So I think they've definitely and that's what Newcastle can do now with Champions League football. You can attract the best and young stars to your football club, can't you? When you're right up the top end of the Premier League, in the Champions League, doing all the right things that players want, dream for, then of course you're going to be able to attract those big names. And Anthony Gordon, I know he was rightly sought after, obviously when he was falling out of at Everton, but I think he's found a right home at Newcastle, and the fans are embracing that, and I think he's embracing that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, England as well. England beckons, I think, for him. There's only so many games, coming up for England. I think Anthony Gordon could be a shoe-in for Gareth Southgate at some point.
Yeah, couple of messages coming in. Obviously, we had that one earlier. What was it? It was so good. I'm going to read it again. It was Andrew, wasn't it? Andrew saying, best cross-footy club show in years. Love it. Keep up the great work, lads. Pete in Long Benton's been spurred on to WhatsAppers. Love the crack. Keep it up. Sal's complaining. Sal in East Bolton, give us more Sunderland, please.
We need a Sunderland presenter. We need a
Sunderland man. Yeah.
We
need you got a Boro.
Where are they?
You got a Boro through and through, Newcastle through and through. You got
There's no Mackem in Milan, so it's the one in Sunderland.
Yeah, if you are that,
we need to get one.
Yeah, let's do the plug. We are looking for that Sunderland fan to come and join the team and be part of the crack and basically defend your corner. Because these multi-millionaire, very rich mags keep looking down their noses now at the Championship. So come on, we're doing our bit for Teesside, for the Smoggies. Mm-hmm. Is there a Mackem out there to do his or her bit for Wearside and the Black Cats? Get in touch. All you got to do is email us. Email a cat. Right, it's hello@thecatuk.com. Hello@thecatuk.com. If you are that person, if you've got the cojones to come on here Monday to Friday, do the breakfast show and do battle with the Smoggies and the Mags. Sorry, Steve. Sorry to throw that financial tag.
50 minutes in
today, though.
50 minutes in. And
didn't mention Saudi cash.
Nah, but it was
50 minutes in.
You're insinuating it.
We used to have a player called Insui. Insinuate.
We did.
Ain't nobody like Insui. Yeah. Oh, I used to love that chant.
I tell you what. Some of the topics that we chuck out, because the way we do this show, people, is we do plan.
We just make it up as we go along.
But then I do laugh because we write each other notes. We send them each night. Like me and Ryle take turns to do the headlines, and then when we come to it, we never discuss anything that we say we're going to discuss.
We don't.
That's because it's breaking news, of course. It's because there is always breaking news. Italian breaking breaking news here. This is one for us, lads. Prosecutors at
this
the
is
Rome
crazy.
Public Prosecutor's Office have placed Napoli president Aurelio De Laurentiis on the register of suspects on the charges of false accounting.
Huh?
This is a due act after the transmission of the acts by the Neapolitan prosecutors. The proceedings are those related to alleged fictitious capital gains around the purchase of striker Victor Osimhen in 2020. So more controversy in Italy. And on Sky Sports News this morning, Napoli striker Victor Osimhen is reserving the right to take legal action against his own club
This is wild.
after his team posted a video to TikTok seemingly mocking the player. So
Have you
it's
guys
all
seen
about
the video? Have you seen the video?
what happened, right?
The club put a TikTok out, right? So Victor Osimhen is obviously the Napoli striker, right? He scored 3 goals in 6 appearances this year. They put a TikTok showing the striker missing the penalty against Bologna. Is it Bologna? Bologna? I apologize, Italian fans.
Bologna.
There you go. Bologna.
Hey, Gabardino.
And they put a high-pitched voice over it saying, "Give me penalty, please," dubbed over the top of him missing it, right? Then there was another TikTok video, right? There was another TikTok video that followed over, and it said, "Is he a man?" And it's a picture of Victor Osimhen. He said, "Is he a man? No. What is he then?" Question mark. And then it was a coconut. They called him a coconut. They put a picture of a coconut. This is the official Napoli TikTok. They've said, "Give me penalty, please," as he's missed the penalty. And then they've called him, they said he's not a boy, he's a coconut. I mean, this is the official club coming out and making videos and editing them, calling him a coconut. Can you imagine in 2023?
Who's he upset? He's upset somebody there, like he's upset somebody.
Dear doctor.
And now his agent's like, we're taking legal action. We're going to sue the pants off him. So I mean, it's literally. I mean, he was linked to Man United and Chelsea. I'm pretty sure, Victor, in the off season. So
loads of Newcastle fans were saying they wanted him at Newcastle, but I mean, there's no way in the world with our financial fair play situation we could have got him. But I mean, that's crazy. Social media again. Not going down that waterhole. That it's a nightmare. You know, social media being
surely
used.
As a club, you've got to have a look at your social media team when they're calling players coconuts. Though, do you know what I mean? Like that can't be allowed. You know what I mean? Whether it's trying to be funny or not, do you know what I mean? You can't refer to anyone, especially your own player, in any derogatory term. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. And they were literally taking the mickey out of him.
I mean, it reminds me a bit of was it Jason Lee who Badil and Skinner came out with? He's got
a pineapple on his head.
Got a pineapple on his head because of his haircut. But at least that's semi-neutral football fans having a go.
Yeah,
this is the club.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, guys. Absolutely.
They paid
crazy.
81.3 million euros for him in 2020. 81.3 million euros for him in 2020, and 2-3 years later, they're calling him a coconut on TikTok. I mean,
I'm sorry to laugh. I mean, there's a serious part to this, but I just can't help laughing, thinking it's the club doing this.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's literally the official club. Yeah.
Hey,
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Got to ask you, right? What's this story that's come out in Australia about them trying to sell off the rights to the Matildas, etc.
This is a wild one. This is a wild one, actually. So we've just had not breaking news. I guess it was a bit of old news now, but it's finally come to the fore that Football Australia considered selling off the Matildas and Socceroos to a private equity firm for 99 years. The documents have been obviously been made they've either been made public or some clicky journalist has been able to get their hands on them. But apparently Football Australia explored selling the rights to Matildas and Socceroos and the A-League, which is our national league, the one Sammy Silvera came from, for 99 years, and it would have been an unprecedented privatisation of football in Australia. The deal could have involved commercialising the data of all Australian football participants, including children as young as 4, in a proposal that raised significant privacy concerns. Even though it was raising significant privacy concerns, it was approved and got to the very last stage. And then, not unfortunately, but luckily, it didn't pass over. There was some smart people in the end that said, no, we shouldn't do it. But it would have been incredible because this entity would have owned the domestic and international broadcasting rights, the sponsorship assets, all merchandise and ticketing to every Matildas and Socceroos and A-League games, all the youth leagues, all the esport leagues, and along with participant data across the entire football pyramid. So, I mean...
And that's the valuable stuff. Data is valuable.
How that could even be packaged up into a 99-year deal that didn't get over the line, it was absolutely incredible. So
Bizarre.
It's incredible that it was a proposal was even put together for that. So, yeah, it's wild to see that
it's interesting.
It was going to be commercialised.
It's interesting timeline as well, because we had that chat about the EFL before. And, we mentioned that when they did that last Sky deal, the hierarchy paid the price. Now, I don't know what happened at Football Australia, but I know James Johnson well, who's the CEO now of Football Australia, but he went into Football Australia in 2020. When did you say this was canned? 2020?
Yeah, 2020. So apparently the documents are showing that it was proposed in 2020 for 99 years, the next 99 years. And it got
horrific.
canned at the
That's horrific.
But it went through. It went to board level. It was approved. Like, obviously there's certain stages. I mean, I'm not a businessman, but there's certain stages that it has to get through, and it gets up, goes up and higher and higher and higher. It got through 3 or 4 stages apparently before it was finally turned down at the final hurdle, they're calling it. So and that it was summarized why they didn't go ahead with it as this. Whilst the bundling of the football commercial assets in Australia is advantageous, the FA must ensure it does not relinquish commercial control of the game in the long term. Therefore, we will be turning this down. But however, the commercial risk involved makes this an unattractive option at this time.
It wouldn't
the key words there as well.
Wouldn't surprise me if this was the change in leadership that resulted in it being canned, because I can understand these. I've seen these deals done. I've been involved in these deals where we've, the company I was working with was trying to do something similar, but this was a 20-year deal, not a 99-year deal. But 99 years it's a hell of a long time to lock away your crown jewels and the value of them.
Because it's incredible. I mean, we've seen the success of Matildas at the World Cup just recently. We obviously held the Women's World Cup here in Australia. We saw, as I said, what the last Matildas game is against the Lionesses. We saw the highest TV coverage of a sporting event ever in Australia, ever. So, and we're talking Olympics. We're talking, we've got our own football leagues and everything like that. The highest watched sporting event in Australia ever is now the Lionesses v Matildas. So, they're talking that they might have had their hands on that. And would have we seen the same sort of, viewership and all that, whether if they had have, gone down this path and all that sort of stuff? It's incredible. And, it's also, we've spoken about it again on the show, but to try and commercialize it without the Socceroos and the Matildas still having a home ground, a home sort of training stadium, a home, place to come home to when they do travel back to play international football. We still don't have that here. So
maybe that was part of the deal. Was that not part of the deal? Because it must have been. There must have been some large chunk of revenue set aside for Football Australia to receive for doing this, for entering into this deal. Was that not part of it?
No, not purely stadium and place of where the place of home for Matildas and Socceroos is not mentioned in this at all. It is purely streaming. It is purely merchandise. So it is purely on what they would get back, commercializing them, making them a world-known entity and advertising, the sort of thing. So not in 1% is it mentioned here that we would also build the Socceroos, training facilities and Matilda's training facilities where they would always come and play and train and blah, blah, blah. It's not mentioned at all.
There's nothing like we'll give them $500 million to build a centre or nothing like that. Nothing. That's part of the deal.
All commercialised advertising, making
and I tell you what's concerning about that. I'll tell you what concerns me about that is the commercial marketplace and the landscape changes over years. And you do a deal for, I was doing deals, 20-year deals. This is a 99-year deal, and the big change that's going to come, but it's already here, but it's going to develop even more, and you're going to see it, is the value of data, is the value of match data, is the value of player data, is the value of memberships data that a football association has. That is now rocketing, and in the next 5 years it will overtake the value of your video TV rights. So if you do a deal for 20 years, or in this case 99 years, how do you know what's going to be next? What is going to be next?
Yeah, it's incredible.
And
It's
you've signed it
incredible.
away, and if it's I don't know if it's a joint venture, and it's 50% owned by them and 50% owned by the FA, then you've just signed away 50% of what's going to come in the future. It's frightening.
The data's huge. It's
Frightening.
only going to go up because
Things
that's
will
how
change
that's how-
and change, lads.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It
Yeah, they will.
changes and changes and changes, and life
That's how
goes
scouting
on.
tees work.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, we're past
through
the
data.
news. We're past the news, Dave.
Again, we've never hit it on time yet. That's fantastic. Are we ever
Needs
going
to go for a few more hours, I tell ya.
I was going to say, are we ever going to hit the news on time?
One day. I mean, we used to when Darren was here.
Oh, right, okay.
That's used to keep us in line.
So it's my fault, is it?
It's all these toilet breaks and going to drink alcohol soap.
He's hitting the alcoholic hand sanitizer.
That's it. That's what he's doing. He's been drinking that.
Oh, just give me a reason. I thank you.
Tell you who gives me a reason. Riley McGree gives me a reason.
Well, there you go. Not a surprise.
What a performance.
In
What a
the
performance, Boro
slightest.
fans.
And you know,
Come on, then, get this out of your system, lads. The Carabao Cup.
well,
What
just
happened
before we
last
do,
night?
whoa, hold your horses. Just pull those reins, fellas. Just wanted to say, Sal was on earlier from East Bolton saying, give us more Sunderland, please. Well, that's why we played Pink, because she was performing at the Stade de Loom earlier in the season, in the summer. So we're trying to do our best. And we're going to have James Copley from the Sunderland Echo. He's the Sunderland writer at the Sunderland Echo. He's going to be joining us in about 6 or 7 minutes here on the North East Footy Brekky. So we're giving you some more Sunderland. And we still need a Mackem, don't we, Rye?
Why doesn't that lady from
certainly
East
do.
Bolton come on? We could do with a bit of, a bit
Love
of
the feminine
Sunderland
touch,
content.
mate. Absolutely.
But I think if she was up for it, why doesn't she come on? It would be good to hear her.
Yeah, Sunderland fans,
It
come
would
on,
be.
get in touch, give us your
It would
thoughts,
be.
give us your views, because we want to talk Mogga. We want to talk
We do.
how well you're doing in the Championship, because the Borough's going to overtake you very soon.
Not so much. Yeah,
No.
that we do.
Yeah. So wait for the line to be delivered, right? Wait for the line to be delivered. It's quite simple. All you got to do is WhatsApp us 0330 043 2002. The WhatsApp number directly into the studio. The North East Footy Breakfast 0330 043 2002. Get your messages in. Get your voice messages in. We can even talk to you live on wireless. Of course we can. Right across the North East. What are we doing at the moment? 1 million people? 1.1 million people? We'll soon be at 2.3 million, I'm telling you. It's going to be the biggest thing going.
Oh,
Right,
we're
I've
going to
had
be. It's
good
going to be.
stuff.
We're going nothing but upwards.
I've had me say it. Right, where are we going now, fellas?
Well, Middlesbrough obviously had an amazing performance last night in the Carabao Cup, aka the Champions League Cup, as I'm calling it now, knocking out League 2 team Bradford City, managed by Mark Hughes. Can you imagine that? If anyone's wondering where Mark Hughes is at,
Yeah.
he's at Bradford. It shocked me too. Middlesbrough coming through absolutely unscathed with a clean sheet 2-0 victory, with Emmanuel Latte-Lath scoring his first goal and from a penalty spot, and obviously we had a follow-up goal from Morgan Rogers as well. So absolutely incredible performance. Tom Glover, the Aussie goalkeeper who came in for Seni Dieng, did not have to make a save last night, with Bradford only registering one shot on target. And that shot on target, by the way, didn't really go near us. So it wasn't really a busy night for our goalkeeper. But Middlesbrough having 66% of the possession, absolutely in control. And oh my goodness, is the Michael Carrick ball back. If anyone is out there and you're a Boro fan, good morning to you. Enjoy your latte this morning, just like Latte last goal, because he is back, I tell you. He played absolutely incredible last night. But man of the match performance was Hayden Hackney in the centre midfield, pairing next to Dan Barlaser. That's right. I know Middlesbrough fans, a name that we keep thinking about, but Dan Barlaser was back in that Johnny Howson role next to Hayden Hackney. But Hayden Hackney, my goodness me. Hayden, if you're out there, I love Riley McGree, but you might be close second, I tell you, mate, because it is incredible what the performances that man is putting out on this pitch for such a young age. We saw him make his England under-21 debut just weeks ago, and he is absolutely just incredibly going from step to step in this Boro midfield, and rightly so, being linked with Nottingham Forest, who will have to pay 400 mil. That's right, I'm his agent, Nottingham Forest. If you're listening, it's 400 mil. After last night's performance, you're lucky I don't double it. Yeah. So it is incredible to see the Boro just bouncing back at the moment. And you know what? It's just confidence now. It's Carrick ball at its finest, it's possession, and Carrick was up and about, and over 4,000 travelling fans down to Bradford for a midweek game. Oh, what's not to love about Middlesbrough at the moment?
And I've got to say, despite the naysayer that is Steve Wraith, suggesting the game was going to go to penalties, I did stick the red £1 on 2-0 last night, so I'm rolling in it. I got 7.5 to 1. And that means I can buy myself half a beer. So that's about it, really.
Well done, that man.
Yeah,
well done, that man.
Absolutely.
But I defend myself as well. I did have faith that you'd get through, because I'm hoping that Newcastle will do the same tonight, and we're going to have Newcastle versus Boro in the next round.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's have a listen to the man himself. Why don't we listen to the words of His Holiness Michael Carrick after the Bradford game? Thanks to mfc.co.uk for this, and you can get onto that website, have a look at the video section, the Boro TV section, and you can watch it in full. But this is what he had to say immediately after the game.
Yeah, pleased. Thought we boys had a really good attitude, good mentality, approached the game really, really well, which doesn't surprise me, to be honest. But you know, it's still got to be done, and then the quality of the performance after that. Some of the football was really, really good. Controlled most of the game, pretty much. It's not easy when, you know, they're looking to put it in a box, and we had to defend the box at times, but we defended high up the pitch particularly well. So I was delighted with that. But certainly the clean sheets are positive, but I thought we played a lot of good football throughout the game, and probably could have and should have scored more as well.
He's sounding a bit brighter, isn't he, Rye?
Oh, he's sounding like a man, you know, absolutely changed over, because he is up and about, and why wouldn't you be when the Boro are playing like that in front of you? And it seems like, and he said in the, you know, just after that as well, that he feels like it's clicked finally. And when you hear your gaffer say that it's finally clicked, oh my goodness, is that a relief? Because, you know, only matches ago were we talking about a reboot or a restart to the system, because we were just having such a shocking start to the season. So it's amazing to hear Michael up and about, and oh my goodness, what a reward for the 4,000 travelling fans as well for a midweek cup tie. And yeah, obviously we got Newcastle, Man City tonight, just a small little checkbook game, that one tonight. But Steve, I got to ask you, Pep isn't going to waste 1% on the cup. So Newcastle victory, do we just call it now?
Yeah, I mean, what a load of rubbish that was. I mean, what on earth is he going on about? And why do managers who, you know, we all seem to really like at other clubs when they first come in, start to go down this road that they seem to like change or metamorphoses into people we really can't stand. I used to really like Jurgen Klopp, but Jurgen Klopp has just become like this, you know, horrendous like caricature of himself, and just constantly comes out with things which annoy other football supporters. And I hope Pep isn't going to go down that route, because, you know, coming out and saying something like that is crazy. I mean, what is he expecting Eddie Howe to say to that? I thought Eddie Howe's press conference yesterday again was calmed, measured, and, you know, it was just very professional. And, you know, he's not going to get into this kind of psychological mind game situation with Pep Guardiola. In fact, he turned around yesterday and said that he respects him. He's one of the best managers in the world. So, you know, fair play to Eddie Howe for not getting sucked into something like that, because we all know that, you know, Manchester City can drop 11 players and 11 players can come in and do equally just as good a job. Look, losing Rodri's a big blow for them. I mean, it was a crazy way to lose Rodri as well. It was a daft sending off. And, you know, just look at his stats. You just need to look at his stats. He is the best holding midfield player in the Premier League, if not the world at this moment in time. And to lose him is a big blow, especially when they're without Kevin De Bruyne as well. They will be looking, though, to Calvin Phillips, who unbelievably he's only played about 336 minutes in 2 years at Manchester City. That is an unbelievable stat. And they'll also be looking at Jack Grealish, who's just coming back from injury. So, look, it's a weakened side, but it's a weakened side that still has Haaland in it. It's the big shootout between two of the top strikers in the Premier League tonight. Callum Wilson and Erling Haaland. Statistically, both of those players are number 1 and 2 in the Premier League division at this moment in time. So, depending on what side Eddie Howe picks, it could be the shootout of the two of them. But Newcastle will go about this job professionally. They've just come off the back of an 8-0 win. Their tails are up. They've come off the back of a 0-0 in the San Siro and a less than impressive 1-0, but a win all the less against Brentford. Newcastle have started to carve out a run, and we don't want that run to end tonight. There's going to be a packed St James's Park tonight. And the Carabao Cup is on their radar. They got to the final last season. They enjoyed the experience. I think we all know that the Carabao Cup is the one cup that we've all got, maybe not a level playing field, but we've all got more chance of getting to the Carabao Cup final than we have maybe of the FA Cup final. Certainly the Champions League as far as Newcastle's concerned. But the Carabao Cup is one that you want to win. It's the one you start with. And Manchester City have given this trophy the respect it deserves season after season after season. It's been, with the exception of last year, the one consistent in their trophy cabinet. So, don't underestimate Man City is what, I would say to Eddie Howe.
I think it's mind games.
Give it 100% tonight, lads, and you never know. We could find ourselves in the next round. I think it's going to be tight.
Well, irrespective of what Pep was saying, shall we have a listen to what Eddie said yesterday in the press conference? Because he was asked about the game, and he was asked about Man City's taking it easy sort of reaction to this, or response to this, or approach to this, however you want to describe it. This is what Eddie Howe had to say.
Yeah, it's an important competition for us, as you say. Last year was amazing for us. We started against Tranmere, which was an incredibly difficult game. Seems a long time ago now, but that's you have to do. You have to go to some tough places in the early rounds. Now we've got the ultimate test coming up in the first round this year, so a totally different tie to last year. But we will give it every importance. We will try as hard as we can to progress, because we want to try and compete in every competition. We're certainly not dismissing it as anything other than the most important game.
And thanks to nufc.com for that. If you want to listen to the press conference or watch the press conference in full, get across to the club website. Steve, he just impresses me every time he opens his mouth, Eddie. But particularly on this one, it would be so easy, wouldn't it, with Newcastle, in the Champions League for the first time, with them needing, and the expectation now of them needing to try and emulate last year's performance, to throw this one in the bin, but he isn't.
No, look, every game's important. What I like about Eddie Howe is, and I listen to his press conferences week after week. I do a press conference review on NUFC Matters. I try to pick them apart, and I try to highlight who's actually asked the questions, and we'll work out which journalists have an agenda, and what is their agenda. Why aren't journalists asking a specific question? That fans probably want an answer to. But Eddie plays it with a straight bat on many occasions. He doesn't get sucked into anything. To be thrust into a club with Saudi ownership, for starters, has been a big issue, because every now and then one of the nationals will open up with a question about a Saudi issue. What about this? What about that? And he swerves it. He bats it away very, very smartly. He's interested in, his job is to concentrate on the football, not this, and that's that. But he does that with everything. Most press conferences are very similar. You'll ask him about a team. It doesn't matter whether it's Sheffield United or whether it's Manchester City. He treats them with respect. They're a good team, they're very technical, they're very strong, they're this, they're that. He gives bog standard answers. But every now and then you do get a gem out of Eddie Howe, whether it's about a player. You can see occasionally he was getting, I wouldn't say knocked, I would just say, you could see
you
that
can say knocked, mate.
It was aggravating him. It was because I don't think knocked gives an impression of somebody who's I think he was getting aggravated by certain questions. When Newcastle had gone on that opening run, we knew it was going to be difficult, and he was getting aggravated about it. And and the way that you can tell he's aggravated is his answers become shorter. Yes, no, but he never fails to impress in a press conference. He gives you the answers. He gives the press enough, but he never hangs his players out to dry. Let's face it, he's had to deal with off the field issues with certain players at the club. Joe Linton was one of the first he had to deal with, with a driving issue. But the club dealt with it indoors. He backed the player publicly, and they got it sorted out. He's had one or two other issues he's had to deal with. Jamal Lascelles was sorted a few weeks ago where he was attacked outside a nightclub. I thought he handled that particular situation well. There's certain things which can boil over and bubble over and become an issue and drag on for days in the newspapers. But the way that Eddie Howe deals with these things in the press conferences nullifies them, stops them in their tracks, and I think it's great. At the moment, there's for me there's no better manager in recent times that we've had, and proud to have him as a manager. When you look across the northeast at the moment, you look across at Middlesbrough and Sunderland, we're all pretty much in a very, very good position with our managers.
I was about to say that.
We've all got managers who we can actually look up to, respect and listen, and that's what gives them that little extra bit of time when things aren't going right. Middlesbrough had it, Newcastle had it at the start of the season, Sunderland had it at the start of the season, and there wasn't fans clamouring for you get the odd one, but you didn't have a massive amount of fans clamouring for their heads or change, etc. And that's because these managers get the area and they're treating the fans with respect.
Yeah, you look at all three of them, and every time Carrick opens his mouth, press conferences, Eddie Howe exactly the same, Mogga. They're all different guys, and they've all got their own styles, but none of them fail to perform when it comes to speaking to the media, the way they conduct themselves and all that sort of stuff, which is a bit unique. We've had some oddballs in the northeast, haven't we, over the years, over the decades? We've had some real crazy ones. Paolo Di Canio at Sunderland is a prime example. A good. I don't know whether it's a good time for the journos, because they can throw these curveballs in, and I've been there when I used to work for Sky. I'd always there's one desk editor in particular, I'm not mentioning names, would call me before a press conference and say, "Your hand finally today is," you've got to ask it, Dave. and there were some real curveballs. So I don't know if the journos are getting much out of the guys at the moment, because they're so well versed and well spoken.
They are
it's a good
quite
point.
Calm and collected, aren't they?
What's the press like in Australia, Rai? Are they as as vicious at times as the press in England? We have this tendency over here to build people up just to knock them down.
I don't think they're as vicious. No, they're more conservative in their questioning. But we do get the odd fiery response from the coaching, especially in the Australian League. There are some very, very good comments in those moments where we see them leaving the press box in a huff, or there's been the wrong question asked, or anything like that. So we do get it there, and they do get criticised a fair bit for their questioning and stuff like that. But the journos play a big part of sport here in Australia, and a lot of our weeknight football shows, that, if you will, are all handled by journalists. They're not ex-players as such. It's all mostly just journalists that handle all of our footballing shows. So they are quite, the popular sort of well-known names are journalists, where I feel like, in England, it's more your ex-players, your Alan Shearers and your Jermaine Genesis and your Gabby Abonglahors and stuff like that seem to grab the headlines, where in Australia it's the journos that seem to that seem to give the breaking news and grab the headlines and stuff like that. So it is interesting to see the different dynamic, that's for sure. But got to agree with the lads, like Eddie Howe and Michael Carrick especially, just always so calm and collected, and just seem to know what to say, and they never get dragged into drama, or especially as I was saying to Steve's the kickoff there with Pep Guardiola saying, "I don't care 1% about the League Cup," and you ask Eddie about that, and Eddie's like, "Well, I don't think that's true." So, and what a response from Eddie, and then we see Michael obviously being under so much scrutiny at the start of the season, not getting a win in the league, and then finally getting on top and saying how he just, it shows the character of a man when you go, through the low times. And then you got Mogga just up the road, just eating sweets constantly. I think the man just eats more candy than he does answer questions sometimes. So, love Mogga though.
Nothing wrong with that.
So,
my waistline
he's always
testifies
considered
that.
and calmed. Yeah. He definitely has, he has the nous, doesn't he, and the experience to fire back and say exactly what people want to hear. So yeah, 3 classy managers up in the northeast at the moment, because I know we could look back probably at some Steve Bruce press conferences there, Steve.
Oh my God!
Some Chris Wilder moments in the
picture me lying in bed with me Newcastle United pajamas on, tossing and turning, sweat coming down me brow, thinking about a Steve Bruce press conference. I'm not being funny, but it's those days. How's the bacon? Did you say? Some of them have been memes. That was when somebody asked him at a press conference a question, and he went, "How's the bacon? Did you say?" And he's like, his mind's on bacon sandwiches instead of Newcastle United, unbelievable, Jeff.
Then we had Gordon Strachan, didn't we? Who was the master of cynicism and trying his best to undermine any journalists that ask him a question. Where did it go wrong on that big green thing out there called a pitch? It's all that sort of stuff going on with Strachan, wasn't it?
Yeah, you just don't like. This is what I mean about managers. This is what I mean about managers sometimes changing over the years, and becoming a hero, and then the mindsets change and the egos change. I used to be a big fan of Jose Mourinho, which I think a lot of people probably were as well. Yep. And I remember that big incident he had where he had that very public dispute with was it the female doctor or physio at the side of the pitch? Yeah,
the female doctor.
And from that moment on, he changed. He was never the same again, and he became obnoxious, arrogant at press conferences, answering questions like that Gordon Strachan one that you've just mentioned. I'm not being funny, lads, but it does change people's perception of managers, and it's a pity because he was one of my favourites. I've got to be honest, and I think Klopp's gone the same. I don't know whether it's ego or what that gets to them, but it's just it's sad to see that happen, and you could never imagine it happening to Eddie Howe, for example. You couldn't expect Michael Carrick to suddenly become like that, but people do change, and it's not nice to see. I tell you what, while we're on the subject of managers, I do want to ask you both a question about managers. Often say the dressing room is a sanctuary. What happens in the dressing room stays in the dressing room. And
I've been part of that, even as a journo, where managers have taken you into their confidence because you build trust, and they go, we're going on tour. Come out and bring your cameras. But but you've got to understand what happens on tour stays on tour.
Well, what we're seeing a lot of now is we're seeing a lot of owners going into the dressing room. And I've seen now Newcastle United. I don't think it's a problem at Newcastle because what you see is that win against Sheffield United. Amanda Staveley went down. She popped in. We do these team photographs when we win games, and she was on the team photograph, and she just went down to congratulate Eddie and the lads. And they're probably making the second Amazon documentary, so that's probably going to be part of that footage. So you can understand that. However, Chelsea, who are languishing, below mid-table at the moment, could have a cup upset tonight as well. We talked about earlier. Their owners, they've got co-owners who seem at the moment, week after week, are going down defeat after defeat and basically talking to the players and the manager. Now, Pochettino says he's fine with this. His mouth said one thing, his face said another when he was interviewed about this. I've got to be perfectly honest. Is it right for owners to continually go in and out of the dressing room? I mean, and how would they feel? Right? I mean, I think this is bizarre.
There's one stat you've just failed to mention there, which I thought it would have been the first out of your lips. They've scored less goals this season than Newcastle scored in a single game.
Wow. Well, there you go. I mean, it's crazy.
I like
isn't
the Domino's reference the other day.
Domino's pizza one that I gave you the other day. It was a classic, wasn't it? I think they've sold like 850,000 pizzas since Chelsea scored a goal. Fantastic that. Well, we are all laughing at Chelsea at the moment. I mean,
we are. Long may it continue.
And long may it continue. But what about owners going in? What's your thoughts on that, lads?
I mean, if I was a player and I saw the owner coming in, I'd obviously be starting to, start to fret a bit. I mean, if it was something that was happening consistently, I think you'd just be like, oh, leave me alone. We've just lost another game sort of thing. But, when you've got the manager coming out and saying, I like when the owners come, and that he said that in his career as a coach at Espanyol, Southampton, Tottenham and PSG, it always happened. So whether it's just a Pochettino thing where he says, maybe it is, but I wouldn't like it at all. That's your big boss. That's the person that writes the checks for your pay slips. They're the ones that have obviously worked hard to get you into the club. And then it's about the players performing on the pitch. And as a player, all I want to respond to is the coach. The coach is the one that that you want to play for, not the owners. You know what I mean? I mean, you want to play for the club badge. You want to play for the fans. You want to play for the coach. But then you got the owners coming in and going, oh, how did you go today? Well, yeah, not too bad, thank you, Todd. It's just incredible to see. And obviously, they own the club. They spend their good money. If they want to go in there, no one's going to stop them when they're the one writing the checks. But I can't see it being too good. Can you imagine being a young kid, 18, 17 years old? Maybe you just made your debut for Chelsea. You're full of nerves. Your mind's a wreck. You've probably just, they've just lost another game. And then, Todd Bowley comes in and says, oh, how you going, you young 17-year-old? And you just be like, well, what, how's that meant to do for a confidence thing? And we talk a lot about social media and mentals and stuff like that. It's incredible to see. And I don't think it's a welcome sight. And I'd say if it was a welcome sight, then you'd be seeing more clubs do it. But the fact most owners don't do it just goes to show you how sort of weird it is. And the reaction to the news article that it has been happening at Chelsea is proof in the pud.
I tell you what, alarm bells would be ringing for me if my owner came into my dressing room and started talking to the players. Because doesn't that smack of, well, it undermines your position immediately, and doesn't it smack of you're in trouble? Doesn't it smack of the owners don't have faith in you?
I just don't know what Pochettino is making of all this. He said he's had similar at other clubs, but I really don't think he has. I think he's just trying to keep them sweet. But his record Pochettino hasn't been, it hasn't been good, and it could get worse tonight. And I just worry for him. I just think, I mean, he's going to get a few quid, isn't he, if Chelsea sack him? But where did Chelsea go if they get rid of Pochettino? Big name managers aren't going to want to come. It's not a case of coming to the club and thinking, I can turn the fortunes around. You'll be thinking, well, what on earth am I dealing with? The managers talk, but I think it's a strange situation at Chelsea. We'll watch it with interest.
That's a difficult game for them tonight. Brighton at Stamford Bridge.
Poor, they've never won. They've never beaten them. Never beaten them in years. 10 years they haven't got a result against them.
Yeah.
Brighton did the double
we spoke
over
about it yesterday. Yeah.
Brighton did the double over them last season.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I found as well, lads. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear this and the listeners, but listen, here we go. Right, hold on, bear with us.
Oh, it's failed.
I didn't want to turn this up in case. I'll come back to it. I'm trying to find this Steve Bruce clip for you.
All right. I tell you what, it was interesting. We're late for the ads. So we're late for the news.
Here we go.
Oh, go on then.
How's the bacon? Did you say? How's the bacon? Did you say?
What on earth? How's the bacon? What on earth are you on about, Steve? I'm not being... Honestly, this takes me back a few years. This is what I used to be like on the podcast. I used to be as hyper as Rye. I used to be going absolutely mental. People say, why are you bald? It's because I used to pull my hair out when Steve Bruce was manager. But anyway, I'm glad I got there in the end.
Long may my hype continue under Carrick, because... Yeah, please don't.
Brilliant. Hey, and I tell you what, we'll do a bit of Sunderland after the ads, because we'll have James Copley from the Sunderland Echo with us. We'll do all of that and much more next across the Northeast on the Cat, the Red, and the Toon. Oh, an absolute banger, a classic. Yeah, Mr. Broken Wings. That's just one of those songs that you put on, you turn the volume up and you lie back, don't you, with your Newcastle United magazine in your hand or something like that.
It is. It's on your playlist. It's definitely on a playlist of people of a certain vintage, mate. Definitely. Glass of red wine.
You're trying to say us old buggers? Is that what you're trying to say?
Sitting in the bath with your candles, Dave, and your alcoholic sanitizer.
Hang on, what road are we going down?
And those
Dave in a bath. Let's go.
Those red paper love hearts floating in the water on the surface.
Pot noodle.
Yeah. Hey, look, fellas, we've waxed lyrical about Boro. We've waxed lyrical about Newcastle because it's all about the UEFA Carrier Bag Champions League Cup success yesterday. And also,
Boro win.
Yeah, a Boro win. Got to say it again, right? Say it again, right? Go on, quick.
That Boro going to win.
That Boro going to win. And Newcastle doing the business tonight. We did get a complaint from Sal. Was it Sal in East Bolton saying, "Give us some more Sunderland, please." We are looking for a Mackem for the show. Right, we need a Mackem to join the team. But even better than having a regular Mackem on the show, we've got James Copley from the Sunderland Echo with us, who we know is a big writer on Sunderland, but a big fan of Sunderland. I've got to start, though, with a non-footballing question, mate. How's your legs after the Great North run?
Yeah, they're good, actually. Yeah, very good indeed. I did it in 1 hour 59, so I was very pleased. Lots of money raised for charity as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So, yeah. It's pleasant running out of Newcastle into South Shields. I find it.
Yay! That's the kind of banter we want.
He's sussed the show already. You want to change your job, James? You sound absolutely perfect.
Did you shake hands with Eddie Howe? Eddie Howe?
No, I didn't. And
you weren't shouting and bawling at him, were you?
No, I wasn't. I did put my AirPods on when Local Hero played before the marathon.
This is James. You're hired.
Oh, we love it. Oh dear, let's bring it back to it. Well, I suppose we were on football technically, weren't we? Talking about Eddie Howe and moving to the opposite side of the carriageway so you can avoid him. Sunderland, Mogga. I mean, it's been a first couple of games. People were concerned, but then the run came, and I know it was disappointing last weekend, but semi-decent start of the season, James.
Yeah, they're sitting fifth with 13 points. A little bit of a missed opportunity against Cardiff City. I think Sunderland probably on balance deserved to win that game given the chances they had, but Cardiff sort of sat in a low block. Masterfully executed a game plan, to be fair to them. Perfect away performance. You sort of rode the storm, scored on the break, could have scored again. So, yeah, it's a really good away performance from them. I know a lot of Sunderland fans are sort of loath to give that style any sort of credit at all, but you know, they came to the stadium of like they turned Sunderland over. Sunderland had the chances, but they didn't convert them. And I think in the context of teams playing that way against Sunderland, playing a low block, I think it is concerning. Obviously, they've scored 5 against Southampton, they've scored 3 against Blackburn Rovers. But in terms of teams coming to sit in, Southampton play expansive football. Blackburn Rovers had a right go at Sunderland at home. So when teams come up and set up at the stadium of like that way, that's the big question, is how are Sunderland going to break them down? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but it's very difficult to be too hard on them. I think the average age of the entire squad is 22 years and 8 months or something like that. So yeah, a bit of a learning curve, but yeah, I think things are going reasonably well for Tony Mowbray at the moment. I think we were having this discussion on the Raw podcast with Phil Smith the other day, and he made the point that whilst this team is a better footballing side than last year's, it maybe does at the moment lack something like an Ahmad or a Ross Stewart. And the other thing as well, the other caveat is that the league's probably a touch stronger this year as well. So it remains to be seen where Sunderland will finish, obviously, given we're only 8 games in. But with the Championship, it's so bananas that you just don't know what's going to happen. Sunderland didn't look like making the playoffs last season until they did on the last day against West Brom. So you can't really tell how these things are going to develop until sort of 20, 25 games in, sometimes 30 games. Lots of strength in that division. Ipswich Town coming up doing really well from League One. Leicester City. You've got Leeds, you've got clubs with parachute payments down there. So, yeah, interesting times, but I think lots of positives as well at Sunderland at the moment.
You're doing a damn sight better.
No mention of the Boro there.
Yeah, yeah.
All the teams he's worried about, no mention of the Boro there. I tell you, we're on the comeback, don't you worry.
Yeah, Middlesbrough looked. I think Middlesbrough last season looked really good. I think it's just replacing the players that you lost. I think Sam Greenwood, I was gutted actually that he didn't come back to Sunderland, because I think that would have been a really good story. He started his career at Sunderland and then was sold under the those that shall not be named, Charlie Methven and Stuart Donald. He was sold to Arsenal, then he went to Leeds, and now he's back on loan in Middlesbrough. So I think he's a potentially quality player in the Championship, and I think given the way given the way Middlesbrough played last season and the flux in the summer, it was always going to be a tough start for Carrick. But I think, that win against Southampton is so vital. But I think he needs to be stuck with, to be honest, because I think he's a talented coach. And he's got that will to win. I remember when, and I'll mention this quite happily, Middlesbrough came to the Stadium of Light and lost last season. Carrick in the press conference is probably low-key the most fuming I've seen a manager, not in terms of outward annoyance or anger, but you could just tell that he was sat there quietly seething, didn't really have much of a desire to answer questions. Thankfully I didn't have to ask him any, but you sort of got that sort of ex-Man United, Champions League winner, England international vibes, that he was really annoyed to have lost that one. So I think whilst he's at the club, I think Middlesbrough got half a chance, but with any football manager he needs results, doesn't he?
And it looks like the start. They're now three unbeaten now. They've had a couple of wins out of those 3 games, so maybe things are turning there. But on the Sunderland front, and I'm really asking this as a fan rather than a sports journo, because there were concerns at the start of the season before the window shut about what the hell's going to happen and what's going on. I mean, it was described by Darren Williams at one point as a fire sale with players looking to be leaving. Have your thoughts, your expectations changed? I know it's only 8 games in, but what you saw before a ball was kicked and where Sunderland are now, have your thoughts changed on how the season's going to go?
Yeah, I think they have. I was as concerned as every other Sunderland fan on deadline day, because it's such a wall of noise, especially with social media. Patrick Roberts was being linked with a move away. Ross Stewart went. Dan Neil was being linked with a move away. And it's a compliment in some regard, because Sunderland have got a lot of good saleable assets, so there's going to be interest from elsewhere. But Dan Neil obviously stayed. There was no sort of formal bid in him. Patrick Roberts has stayed. They've since handed a new contract to Anthony Patterson, Trey Hume, Dennis Sergan during the summer as well. So they've secured some long-term assets. And on the flip side, there's now 3 or 4 strikers at the club. The problem is none of them are as good as Ross Stewart yet. Hopefully one of them can develop and come up trumps. We've only seen sort of 20 minutes of Rusin, the Ukrainian. He came on against Cardiff. He played for the under-21s. So we're just sort of waiting for these players to develop. And I don't think Sunderland fans should be concerned by that, because this time last year, who was Amad Diallo? He was just some kid that Sunderland had signed on loan from Manchester United, albeit he'd cost Manchester United a lot of money. But the jury was still well and truly out. And it wasn't really until the Birmingham game in December that Amad sort of sprung into life, and suddenly he was this really valuable asset. And not to put too much pressure on him, but you hope Mason Burstow, the striker, can do something similar once he gets a run of games under his belt. So as I say, the sort of end of the January window, the end of the summer window was concerning with all of the players linked with moves away. But Sunderland managed to do some good business. They got the right back from PSG. We're yet to see him yet, Timothy Pembele, because he's been on the injured list. There's Auchi, I think he's called. It's a bugger of a name to present, but he's on the comeback train as well. He's played a couple of times. So we're waiting for these new signings to bed in, really, and I think you do always have to give them a little bit of time. It's very rare these days that a signing really hits the ground running. And Sunderland have tended, under the new management and the new sort of ownership structure, they've tended to sort of grow into the season. That was definitely the case last season. And yeah, players take time. It's one of those things. I think we always want results now. We live in a very instant society. Yeah. With social media, with 24-hour news cycles and stuff like that. We all want results now, but in reality, these lads are human beings as well. A lot of them move into new countries, a lot of them move into Sunderland for the first time. Very young lads as well. So yeah, it will take them a lot of time, but when they do come up good, it's hugely exciting, because these young lads tend to play without fear as well.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. That's the thing, the Championship. I mean, it's such a difficult division to navigate. And I think more and more we're seeing as well some of the big teams dropping out of the Premier League, who once upon a time would have had no trouble in coming straight back up, or ending up stuck there for 2, 3, 4 seasons. You know what I mean? And it's become such a difficult division to get out of. But I wanted to ask you about the journalism side of things. How difficult has social media made your job? Because once upon a time, a journalist would sit in front of a typewriter, computer, put the story out. You were the Yeah, you were the be all. You were the
How
people
old do you
that
think I am?
You're the. We would go to you for our news. Now it's at the end of our fingertips. We go on there, and sometimes the news isn't very accurate at all because it's somebody who's sitting in their box bedroom making stuff up just to get clicks. So has that made your job a bit more difficult?
Yeah, it is very tough to navigate the social media landscape, actually. There's a lot of aggregation. We as journalists are guilty of that as well, in terms of if, someone else has a story, we'll tend to report on that as well if it's from a credible source. But just from my own experience, if you put a story of your own out, there's then a lot of sort of Instagram and Twitter accounts that'll reuse that story. They'll give you credit, of course, which is always nice, but everything seems to get blown out of proportion very, very quickly. So journalists should always be doing this anyway, but you've got to make sure your facts are absolutely right. For instance, I had a story on Lee Cattermole being at the Academy of Light in regards to the Sunderland under-18s role.
Yeah, the coaching, yeah.
So I did some digging around that, and had I have published that story as I'd heard it firsthand, the very first time I'd heard it, then it would have been pretty out of kilter, to be honest, and people would have been expecting Lee Cattermole to be appointed. As it happens, I managed to talk to a few other people and got the real story, which was that the two parties had sort of mutually agreed not to pursue the opportunity. So you've got to be very careful. You've got to check your facts, because as soon as you put something out there with aggregation the way it is on social media, if you put something wrong out there, then it does become a fact, and people's expectations get high. So you do have to double check. And social media has some really good points as well. It's a great way to sort of to keep on the pulse of what the fans are feeling, what the fans are saying. It's great for story ideas as well. There's players on podcasts. Julia Walker's been on a podcast recently. It's very good on the Under the Cosh. If you want fancy listening to that. So that there are pluses and negatives, but yeah, it's an interesting thing that I think the industry's moving away from sort of typewriters and print media now and papers, and it's all sort of gone online, which, as I say, it has its positives and it has its negatives. But I think with social media as well, sometimes you do have to cut out the noise and realise that the most vocal people on social media don't tend to represent the whole fan base. So you can have people who are very passionate on issues on social media, but when you speak to sort of your normal Sunderland fan in the street, they're a bit more level-headed, which I always find. So it's great to have social media as that tool and that resource, but I think that the messages don't always take it for gospel, really, and keep those face-to-face conversations going as well, because it's very easy to lose tone on the internet. I think there's, I've had conversations with people where they've tweeted at me, and I've thought, bloody hell, that's a bit prickly. But when you speak to these people in real life, and you say, bloody hell, that was a bit prickly, mate, he was like, oh no, I didn't mean it like that. I actually meant it like this. And of course, there's no real way of reading the tone of a comment on social media unless you're inside the person's head. So
it's a bit like emails as well. I mean, you can read a line on an email, and the guy could have written it, with a completely different attitude behind it.
Exactly.
But I'm pleased to say this morning, when we did our news headlines, we did credit the Sunderland Echo on the Pierre Ekwah coming back story. So we do our bit properly, James. We do our bit properly across the northeast on the Red, the Cat, and the Toon. Brilliant. We're just about out of time, mate. So thanks for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure having you on, and you've got the job. So with the crack that you started off with, we'd expect you to put your notice in this afternoon and come and join us permanently on the Breakfast Show.
See you tomorrow morning, mate.
I feel like I've set the bar high, and I can only under-deliver from now.
Thanks for coming on, mate.
You've just got to run the Great North Run every week, and then we've got a line to start the show.
Thanks for having us on. I appreciate it.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Thank you. That's James Copley, the Sunderland writer from the Sunderland Echo, joining us this morning. Fellas, we're done and dusted. Another one done. Put in the bin. Move on quickly.
Great stuff, lads. Been a wonderful morning. Newcastle United prediction. Newcastle United to win narrowly tonight. 1-0.
I'm also going for a Newcastle win because Pep's not giving 1% of care towards the game. So obviously Man City aren't even going to rock up, and Newcastle will be playing against three men and Newcastle will get the win.
Yeah, indeed. And do you know what? It's a hat trick because I'm going for a Newcastle win. They're going to scrape it, but I'm going for a Newcastle win as well. Steve, for once in my life, I'm going to agree with you. 1-0 Newcastle.
Fantastic.
There you go.
See you tomorrow morning, lads.
See you tomorrow morning.
From Yarm to Yibby, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swarwell to Silverlink. Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the red, the tune and the cat.